Friends, hello everyone, and welcome. It's a joy to be able to host this special webinar on partnering with compassionate spirits with my very own wife, Julie M. Kramer of 25 years. Julie, come say hi.
Thank you so much for having me, and hello and welcome, everyone.
Let me tell you a little bit about Julie. She has been training people to become spiritual healers and teaching this work for more than 20 years. As an introduction to her work on training people to become spiritual healers, she's been offering a 3-day workshop that she's taught more than 50 times, many, many times. And it's a prerequisite for her work. In order for people to go deeper and to become trained to be healers, they first have to take this introductory workshop on partnering with compassionate spirits. And now, for the first time, she has taken this 3-day introductory workshop and created a self-paced online learning program. I asked her how many hours. Is it 14 hours? Is it 15 hours? It's 14 modules of training. That is something like 14 or 15 hours. It's an in-depth training, as I said, normally offered through 3 days, now in a self-paced way that you can learn online. And this is so that more people can study with Julie. We are offering this webinar as a way to give you a taste of what she offers in the introductory program. So let's get started. What do you say?
Wonderful.
We were in the kitchen just a few minutes ago, and you said, this is kind of like dancing. And I remembered that you are one of my favorite people in the whole world to dance with. It's true, because you have this joy that comes through you in something like this on the dance floor. Okay, I'm not going to go on and talk about, well, I will actually. So let me just say a little bit more. We're here in our home. We're together. I'm in a small little room. That's my home studio. That was probably like a kid's bedroom before we moved into this house, and you're in a downstairs space. Now, in my world, I'm in a physical location here, looking around. I'm in a physical reality. Here you go, Julie. What reality are you in? Where are you right now? Let's start with location.
Yes. Well, certainly here in the space, as you said, in our beautiful shared home. And I think what I'm so very passionate about helping people cultivate is the ability to walk in both worlds. And so to have some of our awareness focused on our physical world, most especially when we need to do things like drive and walk and be aware of our surroundings. And we can also divide our attention between the physical world and the spirit world. And so in a situation like this where I'm seated and I'm comfortable and I'm at ease and I'm safe, I can allow my awareness to travel into the spirit world so that I can become aware of the helping spirits who are surrounding me. And this is, of course, what I'm so interested in helping everyone get to experience is having helping spirits nearby, flanking you, surrounding you, supporting you, and accompanying you in your lives. And so I'm seated here, and of course, seeing the screen and your beautiful face, my love on the screen. And with what I would describe as my inner sight, I also sense helping spirits that tend to assume these particular positions around me, one to my left and one to my right, one behind, and there's some at my feet. Those are power animals, also known as spirit animals. And so I have an entourage around me and I can perceive them while also sensing into our physical world.
Now, many people, if you say something like, do you have compassionate spirits around you? they might say, I have a vague sense of something like sometimes, I feel my grandmother is coming to help me with this or that, or, I sense a guardian angel sometimes in special circumstances. But I think for most people, it's fuzzy. That's my experience. When I ask people, tell me more. And they're like, well, it gets a little bit, there's not, but with you, it's very precise, to my left, to my right. At any moment, if I ask you, there's a clarity. And I think people who are tuning into something like this conversation, I believe, are seeking greater clarity and confidence in their link with benevolent helping spirits. How do you develop that?
I think it's a skill like any other skill. And so with practice, we improve, we become more proficient, things do become more clear, more reliable. And I think we also gain confidence with practice because we see the results of our labors. We see that we're having more in depth conversations with our helping spirits as we gain more proficiency. And of course, I'm specifically referring to the practice of journeying, which I know we're going to be talking about. Developing the ability to enter into natural trance states for the purpose of contacting helping spirits and then being able to engage very deeply with them, to have quite in depth conversations and to receive their wisdom and then apply that in our lives. And I think to your point about how many people do experience a felt sense of their helping spirits or guardian angels or whatever they might say. And I found this to be true across disciplines and professions, people of all walks of life. And I think what those experiences have in common is there can be an element of sort of passivity, maybe a receptivity, which is a beautiful way to experience the helping spirits. But what I hear you saying and what I often hear people reporting is that they would like to be able to be more participatory. They would like to be able to be more engaged and they would like to be more empowered inside of their relationships with their helping spirits. And this is why I'm so thrilled to have the chance to talk with you about the course this evening, because my hope is that it will give more people the means for doing that, which is this practice of shamanic journeying that I've been engaging in and teaching for many moons now.
And we're going to talk about that in particularly natural trance states. But before we do, I think people want clarity and confidence that the messages they're receiving are indeed I'm just going to say it as plainly as I can, not something that they're making up. I'm not making it up. So when you said, well, it's like anything else, you practice, the challenge, I think, is that many people get frustrated. They start a training like the trainings you offer, and they're like, oh, I'm just making this up. Forget it. I think I'll, just stay in my vague world. How do you help people get over that obstacle of, I'm just making it up?
Yes. Well, of course, it's so understandable that people would feel that way initially. And I think what happens over time with practice and more experience, with more occasions when the helping spirits have provided you, let's say, with useful, relevant, helpful guidance that you've then applied in your life, you begin to gain confidence in not only the veracity of the guidance that you're receiving, but also that it's not coming from your mind. You're not generating it. It's coming from, if you will, a different frequency or a different being, even altogether. And I think that helps us begin to be able to distinguish between when we're just thinking, which of course we're doing a great deal of the time, and when we're receiving something that is true spiritual guidance that has a particular quality that we begin to be able to recognize. But again, in applying it, we then see the results. And I think that's what eventually convinces everyone. And I never suggest that anyone approach their relationships with their helping spirits in a faith-based way, although I think having faith, pardon me, is beautiful. But I also understand that asking people to adopt a posture of faith is challenging because that means believing without evidence or trusting without evidence. Whereas I feel this work helps us build conviction because we see the results of the work again and again and again. And so, what tends to happen in my circles over time is that oftentimes many people at the start experience doubtfulness and uncertainty, a lack of confidence. They're unsure if they're making things up or not. But then so many beautiful synchronicities begin to happen in the circle, and people journey for each other and receive incredibly valuable, insightful, useful guidance on one another's behalf, especially things people could never have known about one another. And people take the guidance and apply it and use it and live into it. And they begin to see that it's fruitful, that it's generative, that it's helpful. And so I never ask people to adopt this practice using a faith-based approach, but rather to invite them to consider with practice and with time, their conviction is what will grow. And that's what will convince them that this is useful, that it's working, that it's worthwhile.
Now, you mentioned there's a certain quality. You can feel the quality of a message from your helping spirit that's different than, let's say, a creative thought that you're having. What's the difference in how it feels?
Well, I think what we begin to be able to do is recognize the different states that we're in. So you mentioned a moment ago that we'll be talking about natural trance states. I think I'll use this as an opportunity to mention that what research of this practice has taught us or has proven, which of course our ancestors have known for millennia, is that when we expose our brains to percussion instruments, so rattles or drums that are going at a particular rate, so a fast beat that's also monotonous and repetitive, our brainwave activity actually shifts from beta to alpha to theta. And that happens organically. It's a natural process. We don't have to effort, we don't have to work at it. It just happens naturally. And in that theta state, which is a more expansive state, the quality of our awareness is different. We're less discursive, we're also more receptive. And so some might say that in that theta state, we enter into a frequency or come into resonance with our helping spirits in a way that enables us to receive their messages more clearly. I think what I would say is that I would say that too. And I would say is that what I begin to notice is that the quality of the message that comes in doesn't feel discursive. It doesn't feel the way that my mind generally feels. It has a different quality of presence and oftentimes simplicity and clarity. And I'm in a receptive place so that I can actually hear it or perceive it or sense it and receive it, most importantly, instead of all of the usual noise that's going on inside, I think, most of our heads most of the time.
Now, you mentioned that you've come to this webinar with an entourage. And I was like, oh, great. My wife has come with an entourage. Would you, and you mentioned someone on your left, someone on your right, there's some power animal spirits down at your feet. Could you introduce us to some of the members of your entourage? Is this okay, or am I overstepping? Because I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm overstepping. But even when you dance, sometimes you get close. Did I step on your toe? I
You're
didn't
not
mean to.
you're not stepping on my
I'm
toes.
moving. I'm moving close. I'm moving in.
I'd be happy to introduce everyone to them. So this is, I would say, a subset of my helping spirits, but there are certain helping spirits that always walk with me. And many of us have those particular helping spirits. One way to think about it is that all of our helping spirits have specializations. And so the helping spirits that are nearest are the ones who have specializations that have to do with supporting you and guiding you and walking alongside you. So I have a body protector, which is the spirit of bear, and he's usually kind of furthest back. And then between bear and myself is one of my teachers from the Egyptian pantheon, which is Nekbet. And then on my left is a being who was my brother in another lifetime. And to my right is a being who was my father in another lifetime. They're actually not from the same lifetime, but they are guardians of mine who always, always walk with me. And then I have a variety of power animals, also known as animal spirits. Right now, who is most present is Lion, who's curled up at my feet under my desk.
Little have I considered that when you and I have an argument, you've got bear and lion and you've got all these powers. I'm just, throwing it down. I've never really thought about this.
And yet somehow you still manage to do just fine.
Indeed. Okay. So you mentioned about entering a theta state. I'd be curious to know more what that feels like, entering a theta state, and then how you participate. You said that, people want to have more of a participatory. What is the participation part? Do you call out and say, here's my questions, talk to me? Like, how does it go?
Yes, so yes, the theta state has a particular quality, although I'm not sure that I could say it's the same for everyone. But basically, when we prepare to journey, we sing and dance and whistle and drum and rattle. And so it is joyful and celebratory. For many people, it's quite ecstatic or exalted. And this is in order to shift our brainwave activity, in order to generate an altered state or trance state. But we only do that once we have a clear reason to journey. And so it's to prepare to journey, to enter into the trance state in preparation for a journey, so that we journey in that expansive state, but with a particular purpose. And so part of the emphasis in this work is on determining what the intention is, whether that's an inquiry, bringing a question to the helping spirits, in which case you would be asking for guidance from them. I would call that a divination journey, divining information, in other words, from the helping spirits. Or perhaps you're in need of healing for one reason or another. So you may embark upon a journey for that specific reason to receive healing from the helping spirits. Some journeys combine both of those things. But what I'm describing is a very active, very engaged, very participatory process, because we're learning a practice that we can use to initiate contact with the helping spirits anytime. Anytime we're in need of support, in need of clarity, anytime we're in need of precise guidance, anytime we're in need of healing, and also anytime we would simply like to be in their company, anytime we would like to commune with them and learn from them and explore the spirit worlds with them. That too is a perfectly valid and beautiful intention for journey. But the part that I want to emphasize is that, again, although very, very many people have gorgeous experiences of the spirit world in terms of visitations, in ordinary reality, in other words, in their day to day lives or in the dream time, and so forth. And I think many people wish they could establish contact themselves when they want to, when they feel that they need to. And that's what this practice empowers us to do, to be able to initiate contact at will. So to choose to enter into the spirit world and leave the spirit world anytime in order to continue forging relationships with our helping spirits.
Someone that I know that I have a lot of respect for wrote me an email today and said, Tami, there are a lot of unemployed angels in the spirit world that are just waiting for this kind of teaching to be made widely available so people will reach out to them and create a partnership. And I'm curious what you think about that. I mean, it was said sort of in a joking spirit, but what I'm getting at is, how do the spirits, when we contact and we reach out, what's the response? Are they like, so glad you finally, finally knocked on the door? Yes, it's open.
If I may, love, I'd like to rattle for a moment and ask my helping spirits how they would like me to respond to that.
Awesome.
So I'll just rattle for a moment. And while I'm rattling, of course, that helps shift my consciousness and helps me enter into an altered state. And I just like to check in with my helping spirits and see who wants to respond to that. Just a moment. Well, a different helping spirit chimed in. This is an angelic being whose name is Nathaniel, and I've been collaborating with him for many, many years. And although he spoke very clearly about his perspective, of course, there may be varying opinions and perspective among the vast many angelic beings that exist, but I will share what he offered, which I found very interesting. What he said is that they love to meet us just where we are. And so they don't make us wrong for not having been in touch. They don't judge us. They don't punish us. They're very accepting and welcoming of any contact, of any partnership. And what he's saying is that there's so much more that's possible than what happens currently between the human realm and the spirit realm. And of course, that makes so much sense because so many of our modalities and disciplines and professions that at one time had a spiritual dimension have become decoupled from that spiritual or sacred dimension. So much has become secularized. And so there's perhaps on the whole less interaction with the spirit world, perhaps most especially in the West, which is our frame of reference, because in our culture, we're living by empiricism and rationalism and materialism and so forth. And so, what he's saying, what he's offering or extending is such a beautiful, unconditional, and open hearted invitation for anyone and everyone to consider reaching out to the spirit world to be received with such love, unconditional love and acceptance. Because what he's saying is there's so much more we could be doing together, more beauty we could be creating together, more sacred experiences that we could be sharing and offering to others, more hopefulness that we could be cultivating, more healing that we could be engaging in, and more evolution because I very much feel that although we often think about the helping spirits providing guidance and healing, and those are extremely valuable and important, also very much needed, the helping spirits also help us evolve spiritually. And so he's saying there's so much more spiritual evolution we could be engaging in, and they're so ready and willing and available to offer their support to anyone who would like to receive it.
Well, I'm so happy that you were able to get Nathaniel on speed dial there. And I'm not sure who may respond to this question, but I do want to say just one small thing as an aside to our listeners. When I first met Julie, I was like, could you call up so-and-so and ask them, I have this question, I have that question. I'd come out of the bathroom when we were at a business dinner and I'd pull Julie aside and I'd say, can you, and she was like, this is not how it's going to go between us. No way. Totally stop. I am not your resident psychic. I am your person, your human person. So we had to establish that. So I don't, so okay, but now I'm going to go ahead and ask a question that I really want to know, which is because we're, broadcasting. And so I've had this working hypothesis. I think I've really been developing it maybe over the past year, that during this time when there's so much energetic chaos and dare I say it's such a perilous time for the human species, that the spirit realm is coming closer in a certain way. Sort of like you could say it's thinning, and it's more acceptable for you and I to be having this conversation. Your work, you're offering an online course now, you've never done it before, that there's almost this inner imperative that humans are feeling to connect with spiritual help at this time, and that the spiritual realm is coming closer to us to offer help. But I've just developed this working hypothesis, maybe because I want it to be true. And I'm wondering what you or anybody on speed dial might have to say about this.
Hmm. Well, that is, of course, a complex inquiry, and one that I would want to bring to the helping spirits repeatedly, and also that I would consult with multiple helping spirits about. But I would love to check in and see who would like to offer their perspective now, bearing in mind that it could be revisited again and again, which is how we hold our more complex inquiries. Let's consider this to be a starting point.
Thank you.
Mhm. Well, this message comes from Nekbet, again, a goddess within the Egyptian pantheon. And what she's offering, using the word perilous as you did, what she said is that humanity and, of course, the other than human citizens of this planet have long since now, for decades or longer, been facing the consequences of their choices and actions without there being shared consciousness about our responsibility and what needs to be done differently, what different choices we can make, what different actions and measures can be taken. And so, what Nekbet is saying is that the consequences of our unconsciousness are becoming increasingly perilous, which means that the imperative to become conscious is growing in intensity. And therefore, people are certainly turning to the spirit world as one means for trying to wake up to our reality and trying to help others do the same before it's too late, effectively. And so the sense of intensity or urgency that you and others may be feeling is certainly something she's reflecting as valid. And hopefully that helps some of us, more of us, begin to take that seriously, because, of course, we all know what the consequences will be if we don't. And yet, despite all that we're observing and witnessing and all that many are victims of, that still hasn't been enough, at least not at the level of our global community. But perhaps that will change. Perhaps the scales will tip in the other direction.
All right. In your introductory program, this self-paced learning that someone can have online, your students are taught how to confidently connect with compassion. Can they at the end of it rattle like you just did and call
Yes.
someone up? Okay, yeah. And then you also teach people how to travel safely in the spiritual world and activate their medicine council. So let's talk about these two other, can we say, learning objectives that are achieved. Talk about traveling safely in the spirit world. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, I think it's actually fairly easy to have a spiritual experience or as a teacher to help facilitate that, or as a practitioner to help facilitate that. And what I'm interested in is helping people become self-sufficient, helping people become confident journeyers, which means that they have to be able to navigate in the spirit world comfortably, reliably, and confidently. And our helping spirits are our guides. They know the pathways and the realms. They know all of the places in the invisible realms. And of course, when I say the spirit world or the invisible realms, I use those terms interchangeably simply to point to the fact that in addition to our physical reality, there are other spectrums or dimensions of reality that exist. And this is where the helping spirits are. And so, what I want to teach people is how to navigate confidently. And the starting point is that we actually never go into the spirit world alone. We always have helping spirits with us. So, what that means is that we need to have relationships with helping spirits that we can depend upon to serve in that function. And as I said before, some of them have very particular specializations. Like I mentioned, I work with the spirit of bear, and in my case, bear provides me with protection in both worlds. And this is an area of specialization, a particular relationship that I've cultivated, and one of the journeys that's offered as part of the course so that everyone can have a body protector. And that's a spirit that goes with you in the physical world. So bear is always, always by my side and also accompanies me when I journey into the spirit world. So bear is always beside me at all times. So that's one example of a particular specialization. And with the different helping spirits that you become introduced to during the course, you form relationships that then enable you to, again, comfortably and confidently journey because you have these helping spirits lending you their support and also their expertise. We can't be expected to know what the spirit world consists of. We can't be expected to know how to get around. And thus, we rely on the helping spirits to serve as our guides, just as if you were going to a new city, in a new country, if you didn't speak the language or you weren't familiar with the landscape or the geography, ideally you would have a guide who would help you and support you.
And someone wrote in the chat, do we all have these protector spirits?
Yes, I think I would say yes, and I'm not sure that everyone is aware that they have helping spirits. I believe the helping spirits lend us their support even when we're not aware of them. And I think that's quite common. And we can also receive so much more support than we may even already have in place. In keeping with what the angel Nathaniel was saying, there's so much more help that's available. This is a vastly underutilized resource, in my opinion, the spirit world and our helping spirits, especially those who can play these very specialized, very dedicated roles. And so, what I would say is that even if you don't have one in that role now, you can ask for that. And the spirits respond. They offer us their support. They respond in kind. They're so generous with what they offer us and with what they share with us in terms of their gifts and their medicine.
So one of the things that people will learn in this training is how to quote unquote activate their medicine council. Tell us about that.
Yes. So, of course, we tend to emphasize the ancestral lineages that we belong to, which are important and very meaningful. And part of what my helping spirits have taught me is that We belong to many more lineages than just our bloodlines or just our ancestral lineages. And a medicine council is a council that's comprised of emissaries from every one of those lineages. But this gets complex because it also includes other lifetimes. And so you may have, as a member of your medicine council, an emissary from the ancestral lineage that you belonged to in another lifetime, just as you may have a member of your medicine council who's an emissary of the ancestral lineage or one of the lineages that you belong to now. But we also belong to other lineages currently in our current lifetimes and have belonged to others and will belong to others in other lifetimes. And so, one important example that I think many people can relate to is that we belong to professional lineages. We have professional affiliations, and those have historical precedent. Many of our modalities and disciplines and professions have evolved over time. Some can even be traced back to specific originators. And in those cases, sometimes what we find is that the member of a given person's medicine council is actually the originator of the profession that they practice. And so they actually have this incredibly wise teacher in the spirit world who was the originator of this entire beautiful lineage that's now being expressed through that person. So, part of what we explore as we come to get to know the members of our medicine council is that every lineage that I belong to is a lineage that's expressing itself through me. It's converging within me along with the other lineages that I belong to, and it's expressing itself through me. So it's evolving through me. And I'm evolving by way of belonging to the lineage. That's in part how I'm learning and growing and honing my medicine. So we explore this fascinating reciprocal relationship and we learn from these wisdom keepers. The emissaries of the lineages have mastery in these areas. And so we can learn from their mastery, learn from their wisdom. And they're also carrying forward the lineage in a good way. And sometimes we can think about, well, gosh, maybe members of our immediate or relatively recent family members who didn't seem very empowered or who didn't seem very ethical or who didn't seem very trustworthy. And we can question the nobility of our lineage. And perhaps there's been trauma or persecution or extensive suffering that has caused people to experience tremendous harm and even cause harm to others. And so we can journey and ask for a member of any lineage who carried their medicine in a good way in their lifetime, perhaps at a time when the conditions were sufficient for that medicine to flourish. And if we look back far enough, and sometimes we don't have to look that far back, but sometimes we do have to go quite far back, we can actually find a noble emissary that can help us understand the gifts within the lineage and help us unearth those and cultivate those and bring them forward again for the benefit of everyone who belongs to the same lineage that we do.
Now, let me just ask a clarifying question. So I think most people, when they hear a word like lineage, what they think of is their biographical lineage, biology, my family tree. But you're using the word lineage to refer to different types. Can you be more specific what types of lineages you're referring to?
Yes, certainly. So I mentioned professional lineages. And so let's say that somebody practices traditional Chinese medicine, they have beautiful ancestors, if you will, of that lineage, of that tradition going back literally thousands of years. And that lineage has evolved throughout the course of history and even cross culturally during that time and is now evolving through every person who's a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine. And so that would be an example of a professional lineage that someone in that lineage, practicing in that manner, who's been trained or initiated as that type of healer, is carrying and also carrying forward. In my case, I belong to a spiritual lineage. That's my profession. It has a very clear spiritual dimension because it's literally about being in communion with the helping spirits. And I consider my ancestors, if you will, of this lineage to consist of helping spirits who have been guiding humans for millennia, like myself, who work in close partnership with them on behalf of their communities. So, those are just two different examples, both professional in nature. They're also what I would call the soul's lineage keepers or guides. And so, these are the guides that accompany us from one lifetime to the next because the soul has its own lineage, and there are emissaries and guides who can help support that evolutionary unfolding and help us understand the nature of that unfolding. And so we literally form over time a circle, and the circle consists of these individual emissaries who each carry their own expertise and experience and knowledge and wisdom. And all of that is what flows into every one of us. And it can help us gain a great deal more clarity about our purpose, but also the gifts that we have access to that can help us fulfill our purpose.
Now, this notion of activating a medicine council, if I understand correctly, this is something that you're teaching in an original form. This came to you. You didn't learn this from a human. Is that correct? How did you come up with this medicine council thing?
From my helping spirits.
And why is it something that's so important to you?
Because I think many people struggle with either a sense of purposelessness or feeling as though they would like to be more purposeful. And the allies that we meet when we begin to meet the members of our medicine council are experts when it comes to our purpose. And our medicine consists of our special gifts and affinities, our specializations, our natural talents and abilities, our capacities and proficiencies. I would say these are all gifts from grace, and everyone carries medicine. Everyone has special affinities. And with our medicine council, we begin to be able to not only understand what those gifts are and where they come from, and how we can learn more about them and activate them and engage them more fully, but our medicine council members can also teach us about our purpose. Why did we choose this lifetime? Why this body? Why this place? Why this time? What is our part to play? What are the ways in which our medicine is needed at this time? And I think to your earlier question about a sense of urgency that so many people feel, so many people are asking, what can I do? What is my part to play? How can I help? How can I support? And one way is to start with, what is the nature of your purpose? Why are you here? And what is only yours to do? What is that thing that is only yours to do, that your medicine has been designed to enable you to do? Because your medicine are those beautiful gifts that you bring forward that enable you to fulfill your soul's purpose. Your medicine is the means by which you're able to fulfill your soul's purpose. And so I'm so inspired to help people not only gain more clarity about the nature of their purpose, but also access the fullness of their medicine so that they can bring that forward for the benefit of all beings. Because I feel that when we live in alignment with purpose, we're naturally offering our gifts in beneficial ways. We're naturally making a contribution. We don't have to try harder to make a contribution. That is our contribution to make. And so living with that sense of clarity and alignment, I think, is incredibly empowering for people, but it also fulfills the longing or the need or the desire that so many have to live more purposefully, more meaningfully, and to make more of a contribution, especially at a time when we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to be bringing forward their beautiful medicine in all of its beauty and potency. We don't have time to waste any longer for people to withhold their medicine from the world. The world needs everybody's medicine.
As part of this webinar, my great love, we decided that we would offer people an experience of some kind. And I asked you, well, what can you teach in a format like this? And you said, well, I could take people into a brief heart-like practice because it's through the heart that we're able to access connecting with compassionate spirits. So let's do it. I mean, you're going to
Okay,
lead us. I'm going to participate.
wonderful. So let's take a moment to get comfortable in the places where we are. And for our beautiful listeners, of course, you're welcome to remain seated, or if you would feel more comfortable reclining or lying all the way down, that's absolutely fine. And as we're all getting settled, we'll take a series of long, full breaths together. Let's take 3 long, full breaths together, and feel free to vocalize on the exhalation if that would help you arrive and feel more of a sense of relaxation. And we'll begin as Tami began at the start of our conversation, simply by locating ourselves on the earth. And so noticing all of the places between your body and whatever is supporting your body, wherever those points of contact are. So it might be your thighs and your seat in your chair. It might be the soles of your feet upon the floor. Or if you've laid down, it may be the entire back of your body being held by the floor. And of course, we experience our chairs and couches and floors beneath them as being stable, as holding and supporting us because of the support of the earth beneath us. And so we'll take a moment to rest our attention upon the constancy, the stability, and the strength of the earth. And if you would find it supportive, you can even send tendrils down, little shoots that can become a root system extending down through the floor and through all of the construction materials in your home or your office, all the way down to untouched earth where you can anchor and feel that beautiful stability holding you. letting down into the support of the earth so that you're efforting a little less to keep yourself upright, but instead allowing yourself to be cradled by the earth. Noticing that because our bodies are, of course, of the earth, wherever we are, even if it isn't in a place that we would think of as being home, our bodies are always at home with the earth and on the earth and in the earth. And so simply inviting our bodies to have that beautiful sense of homecoming and belonging that can be so reassuring, so comforting and settling. And having established some ground for our bodies, we're going to illuminate the space all around our bodies in order to potentially shine a light on any helping spirits who may be near. And the light will shine upon them is our heart light. And so I would invite you to rest your attention upon your heart center and notice that there's a natural light that emanates in all directions from everyone's heart center. This is the light of our spirit, animating our human bodies, filling us with light and shining out through and beyond our bodies, filling up the space all the way around our bodies. And so noticing how you experience your heart light in this moment, if it has a particular color, if it has particular qualities. If there are sensations that you feel. There may be sounds that you hear. There may be a fragrance that you smell. And if it helps to use your hands, you can draw your heart light all the way out to the edges of the field, that beautiful proprioceptic field that our bodies rest within, that envelop all of our bodies, so that a beautiful, brilliant egg-shaped bubble begins to form all the way around your body. And as we cast our gaze around our bodies into this illuminated space that's become filled up with our heart lights, you may notice that the helping spirits who are with us are also shining their heart lights towards us. And so noticing if there's a particular quality that you perceive. It may be the quality of an individual or specific helping spirit, but it could also be a quality that's being expressed by multiple helping spirits. And what they're saying is that what they would like every one of you to feel, to experience yourselves, is how cherished you are. That you are so beloved to your helping spirits, that they hold you with immeasurable love and tenderness. And noticing how our heart lights become amplified in the presence of their heart lights. And if we widen our gaze further, of course, here we are this evening, joining from different places in Canada and the US, in Australia and Asia and Europe and so forth. So I would invite you to widen your gaze further in order to notice that we're each these beautiful, what may begin to feel like pinpricks of light all around the globe, forming a beautiful web of light. And as much as many of us might have been told not to shine too brightly because it might somehow detract from someone else, what's in fact true is that our heart lights amplify one another's. And so as we become aware of all of our heart lights, and how the resonance of our heart lights brings us into community and into connection with one another. Let's decide together we're going to carry this beautiful resonance into our day-to-day lives and the communities that we're a part of, in the hopes of lifting up the hearts of everyone around us, that everyone's heart lights may shine ever more brightly.
You call the entire training pathway that you teach, Julie, the ennobling of the heart. And I think I felt some of that ennobling as you were talking, and my heart was expanding. But tell us what you mean by that phrase, the ennobling of the heart, and why you call your training pathway that.
I'd like to ask the helping spirits how they would like to
Oh,
answer
let's
that, if I may.
definitely dial them up.
The helping spirits see us in our beauty, and as our beauty, they see us in our medicine, and as our medicine, They see us as our gifts. They see us as blessings. And they want us to become ennobled. They want us to remember our purity and our goodness and our beauty. And they want us to bring that forward in the world for the benefit of all beings. And so it's our partnerships with the helping spirits that are ennobling. And of course, ultimately, that's what I teach, is how to be in partnership. And my aspiration is simply to create the conditions in my circles that will allow for people to have their own direct experiences of the helping spirits, which are intrinsically ennobling. The experiences themselves are intrinsically ennobling. And so the ennobling process is a natural process. It's not an effortful process. It happens naturally through our communion with the spirit world.
Someone wrote earlier in the chat, I could listen to Julie talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I'm going to shut this dance party down right about now, and let people know that not only is there this new self-paced online course available where they can listen to you if they want, for such hours and hours, and go through 14 modules of training and learn how to activate their medicine council, and that you'll also be teaching at a retreat center up here in Canada on Cortes Island called Hollyhock, a program on psychopomp. And maybe you could just briefly, because I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with that word, at the end of August, you're teaching a deep dive intensive, and the online program is the prerequisite to then join you at Hollyhock for this intensive on psychopomp. Just briefly explain what that is.
Yes, certainly. Well, of course, as some of the listeners know, Hollyhock holds an extremely special place in my heart because that's where I was introduced to this work and also introduced to my wife. And it's thanks to the helping spirits that I understood when I met Tami what exactly was happening and what would become of us. All these years later, indeed, what they told me then has proven to be true again and again. I'm returning to Hollyhock this summer at the end of August to lead a retreat on psychopomp. Psychopomps are the conductors or conveyors of souls, and a person can be a psychopomp as well as a helping spirit. Human psychopomps are those that tend to the dying, those called to the bedside, whether in a formal professional capacity or in an informal capacity. And the retreat is about learning how to partner with the helping spirits whose specialization is psychopomp, because those are the beings that accompany the souls of the dead across the threshold into the light. And that can be a process that a human psychopomp at the bedside can help support and facilitate as part of our approach to caring for the dying and the dead. And so I'm very hopeful that the course that we're here discussing tonight is going to enable more people to join me at Hollyhock, because you'll be able to learn how to journey at your own pace between now and August and save up to come in person to a retreat at Hollyhock so that we can do this beautiful, very deep work together, which ultimately helps all of us prepare for our own death, but also be available to be a source of support for our loved ones and also clients and patients professionally during their dying processes. So that's what will be happening at Hollyhock at the end of August.
Okay, friends, you can learn more at juliemkramer.com. And now I think we have to go out to dinner with our nephews. Yeah, isn't that what's going on? I think I gotta, all right, the music has stopped, but the dancing will continue with all of you. Thank you so much for being here, for bringing your heart lights to join us, for your openness, your love and support. It feels great to be in community with all of you. Thank you. Thanks,
Yes,
friends.
indeed. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.